Welcome back to season 2 of the Truth and Freedom podcast, where awakening begins with asking the question most people are afraid to ask. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Amzallag, and this is not just another podcast. This is a journey into awareness, courage, and truth. Now, in today's segment, we will cover the topic of discipline over motivation, the secret weapon of self-mastery. Motivation is a beautiful illusion. It feels powerful when it's there. That rush of excitement, that inner spark that makes everything seem possible. But the truth is, motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the wind. Some days you wake up ready to conquer the world, and other days, well, even getting out of bed feels like a battle. And if your entire life depends on that feeling, if your goals, your purpose, your healing all depends on being in the mood, then you're at the mercy of your emotions. Discipline, not motivation, is what sets you free. Because discipline doesn't ask you how you feel. It asks you who you choose to be. We've been sold this romantic idea that passion is the secret to success. That if you just find what excites you enough, you'll never struggle to stay consistent. But anyone who's ever achieved something meaningful knows that's not true. Passion can light the fire, but discipline keeps it burning when the wind picks up. Now, every writer, artist, athlete, entrepreneur, or healer knows that most days aren't glamorous. They're repetitive, quiet, uncelebrated. The results are born in those moments, the ones where you show up not because you're inspired, but because you made a promise to yourself. The truth about motivation is that it's tied to emotion, and emotions are temporary. You can't build a lifelong vision on temporary states. Discipline, on the other hand, is anchored in decision. It's a commitment that says, I'll show up no matter how I feel. And, ironically, that's what creates real motivation. Because motivation doesn't precede action. Action precedes motivation. Now, the moment you start moving, your brain begins to shift. Your energy rises. Your mind starts aligning with effort. Waiting for motivation is waiting for permission. Acting from discipline is giving yourself that permission. Now, we all crave ease. It's human nature. But the paradox of life is that true ease only comes after consistent effort. Growth, mastery, healing, all of it requires friction. You can't meditate your way into strength. You must show up again and again and again, even when it's inconvenient. The mind will always find reasons to delay. I'm tired. It's not the right time. I'll start next week. These are not truth. They're negotiation with your potential. Discipline doesn't negotiate. It just moves. It says, I may not feel ready, but I'll begin anyway. Now, discipline is a quiet friend that no one praises. It doesn't give you dopamine like motivation does. It doesn't feel exciting. It feels ordinary. But that's where power lives, in the ordinary. Consistent moments that no one sees. You go to the gym when you don't want to. You sit down to write when your mind is empty. You apologize when your pride wants to win. That's discipline, the muscle of integrity. Now, every time you do what you said you do, you send a message to your subconscious. I can trust myself. And that trust becomes unshakable confidence. Now, people often say that they lack motivation. But what they really lack is clarity. When you don't know what you're fighting for, discipline feels like punishment. But when your why is clear, discipline becomes devotion. You stop asking, do I have to do this? And start saying, I get to do it. Now you stop needing the rush of motivation because the act itself becomes sacred. Every repetition, every routine, every choice, they become tiny rituals of alignment. Now think about the time you followed motivation. Maybe you started a diet, a project, or a relationship with enthusiasm. Then life got inconvenient. Stress, doubt, boredom sets in. and the motivation vanishes. That's when most people quit. But the ones who succeed, who evolve, who grow, they push through that dip. They don't chase feelings, they chase alignment. They understand that discomfort is not a sign to stop. It's a sign where you're stretching beyond your limits. Motivation fades when comfort disappears. Discipline thrives when comfort disappears. Now, discipline is love in action. It's not about punishment or rigidity. It's about honoring the future version of yourself who deserves the rewards of your present effort. Motivation is self-indulgent. Discipline is self-respect. Motivation says, do it when you feel like it. Discipline says, do it because you said you would. And over time, that simple shift builds character. It creates momentum that no mood can break. Now, there's a psychological truth behind this. The brain loves reward, but it also loves familiarity. The more often you show up, the easier it becomes for your brain to associate consistency with safety. Eventually, discipline becomes a habit, and habit becomes identity. You no longer have to force yourself. You just are the kind of person who follows through. And when that happens, you've transcended the emotional roller coaster of motivation. You've stepped into freedom. Now, some people think discipline kills creativity or joy, but it's the opposite. Discipline creates a space for joy to exist. Think of a dancer. Hours of repetition allows her or him to express herself or himself effortlessly. A musician practices skills until instinct takes over. A writer creates structure so the mind can flow. Discipline gives shape to freedom. Without it, freedom collapses into chaos. So if you've been wanting to feel ready, just stop. Readiness isn't a feeling, it's a decision. Decide to act when inspiration is silent. Decide to keep going even when progress feels invisible. Decide to be the person who honors their word. Because once you master discipline, motivation becomes irrelevant. You no longer depend on the mood to determine your movement. Now, here's the beautiful irony. When you stop chasing motivation, it starts showing up more often. When you show up for yourself consistently, the universe mirrors that energy back. Momentum creates magic, and soon, what once felt like struggle becomes second nature. The truth about motivation is that it's fleeting, but discipline, well, discipline is eternal. It's a language of every person who ever built something meaningful, healed from something painful, or become someone extraordinary. Discipline is freedom disguised as effort. It's the proof that you're stronger than your excuses. So next time your mind whispers, I don't feel like it, just smile, because it's the exact moment discipline is asking, do you still mean what you said when you were motivated? That's the test. And every time you pass it, you rise, you evolve, you build a life that no temporary feeling can shake. Motivation starts the journey. Discipline finishes it. And freedom, real lasting freedom, is found in the follow-through. Now, I hope that you've all enjoyed this insightful episode as much as we did. And stay tuned for our next one as we'll explore the narcissism epidemic, freedom through awareness. Until then, my good friends, stay awake, stay grounded, and stay free.